All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. In this week's show, we have a Q&A with 4 main topics. I do love these types of podcasts. Why? Because it's the exact type of questions that you guys ask. So if you're a long-time listener, welcome back to the show. If you're a first-time listener, where have you been? And we're going directly straight to saying you need to come here on a regular basis. I obviously haven't had enough of my green peppermint tea, parsley tea even for that matter, that improves concentration without the negative effects of the caffeine. All right, that's what I drink and that's what I recommend, because parsley is such a handy one. It's that lutein and zeaxanthin antioxidant, and it contains vitamin C. All things health we shall be discussing. So the 4 main topics we've got here in front of me are: what foods are good for gut health? Okay, that comes in from Anonymous. We have still feeling hungry after a high fiber meal on some Mel and Instagram. Then we have Paul, who sent in, would salmon be okay for a protein source for dinner? Then we have again from what do you think? What do you do? I didn't read my own writing. Difficult at the best of times. What do I do on the days where I feel SH1T and struggle to stay motivated? Okay, that comes from Sandra Roach. Those are the 4 main topics we will be discussing in this week's episode. So we'll go back up to the top. What foods are good for gut health? Gut health is so important. It literally is connected to every part of your overall health. Your mood, your energy levels, your skin health. And as a result of that, if you're not eating foods that benefit your health, which is your gut health, you are, I suppose, fighting an upward battle. The foods that can be broken down into 2 main sections good for your gut health. They are prebiotics and probiotics. Before we go any further, I don't know why they put them so similar in, suppose, the way, firstly, spelling. They could have separated out a little bit better. So just to think about it. Pre are the prebiotics that you put in before your gut microorganisms can break it down. So prebiotics are foods, typically foods that we eat, such as all types of vegetables. The probiotics are typically fermented foods that you can add to your diet on a regular basis to naturally increase those beneficial microorganisms in your stomach. So getting back to the prebiotics, all types of vegetables are prebiotics, but there are higher vegetables than others that you need to add into your diet right now. And as nature provided us with, I suppose, these foods to come into season for a reason, we have onions, garlic, leeks. Mentioned those 100 times on this podcast, and even more so, be more specific. Right now, the new superfoods we've got are Jerusalem artichokes and yacon. Jerusalem artichokes and yacon are so easy to add to your diet right now. Whether you're growing your own or you buy it, make sure you're adding it to your diet. I say that with, I suppose, a bit of passion, because they are improving your immune system. That is what is good for your gut health. So when you're consuming these high prebiotic foods, you're getting a type of fiber called inulin. Write that down, because it's something that you need to add in more of your diet. When you start to add this naturally populates those beneficial microorganisms. There are trillions of them found inside in your stomach. Okay, and as a result of that, when you increase those beneficial microorganisms, you are able to have increased energy levels, and as a result of that, you will then have more energy to put into your day-to-day as well as your training. A lot of people that I come into contact with for looking for health and increased levels of health, they are lacking in energy levels. I mean, if low energy levels, that is a sure sign you need to change up your diet. Okay, a lot of people are eating and looking for quick fixes. I'm going to tell you that these are the best natural sources of increased energy without coming in a liquid form or a powder. It's a whole food that is something that can be easily grown, and there's such an easy crop to grow for those of you that are really into it. And you put it in just like a tuber. I wish I had one right now. I've actually eaten it already. It'd be great for a demonstration on the YouTube videos. And in on top of that, it is typically, we're talking about Jerusalem artichoke right now, a knobbly type of tuber. So literally a knobbly type of spud, but don't let that put you off. It's so easily sown in the ground in roughly around March, last frost, And as a result of that, it's very slug resistant. So for those of you that are starting off and say, I can't grow anything, the slugs eat it. They don't even like it. They may nibble it. And if they do nibble it, I've had on site visits that I go to, had the worst case of slugs and it still survived it. So there is a will, there is a way, and you can grow and be much more self-sufficient and get these types of foods into your diet very easily. So after you grow them, there's no earthing up like potatoes. There's no spraying for blight like potatoes. There's nothing to them. They produce the flour and they're a natural bee pollinator as a result of that. You are gaining massive benefits, not only for yourself, but also the environment. They pull in carbon from the atmosphere. Carbon is increasing the likes of global warming, which I'm certainly going to tell you has happened in Ireland. Why? Because we are heading into mid-October. And up to last week, we had temperatures now in outside coming up close to 20 degrees. That means we nearly had 30, if not above 31 degrees in your growing polytunnel areas. That is unheard of. That's not normal. So it's great, I suppose, for us getting outside, clocking up steps, getting in sunlight, reducing vitamin D. But there's a whole area to be looked in, I suppose, in fact, that leaves need to fall off trees. There's things that need to get cold exposure so that they can produce and go through their life cycle. Garlic is one of those things, because if it doesn't get cold enough, garlic, this is why you should be sowing your garlic about now, because garlic bulbs need cold exposure to split it up into different cloves. Other than that, if you sow it at different times of the year, you can avoid that cold exposure, and there's nothing like a full clove of garlic. That's, I suppose, a side point. Actually, no, it's not, because garlic is related to inulin and fiber. It's all these links together. I totally meant to add that in there. And then now we're going to go on to probiotics. Okay, probiotics are fermented foods. These are something you add with your prebiotic foods. So the prebiotic foods are the vegetables, the probiotic foods are the fermented items, whether liquid, your kombucha, or you can make a miso sauce. Miso is just fermented soya. Mix it up in hot water. Where do you get these things? You get them in health food shops, and not the health food shops, I'm allowed to say it, Holland & Barrett, that don't have vegetables or don't have a high percentage of actual decent foods that are, I suppose, the best choices for your overall health. They're found in every small country, town and village in Ireland and other countries such as America and Australia, but you need to source them. If you're struggling, make sure you get on to me. I surely know, between all the different friends and connections that I have, a healthy health food shop that you can get miso, you can get kombucha, you can get the likes of sauerkraut or kimchi. Sauerkraut is fermented cabbage, and cabbage is from the brassica family. Any of those types of brassica vegetables do contain antioxidants that can reduce stress. As well as that, it can also be a good way of getting in a getting in a probiotic to give diversity in your stomach. Yogurts are another one, and they're one of my favorite. Okay, whether your goal is weight loss or whether your goal is to build a little lean muscle tissue, yogurts are a breadwinner. There isn't a shop in the world that doesn't sell a yogurt. And when you go into a shop, get the natural yogurt. Get it natural and get a high protein. Glennis do a great selection of organic and high protein yogurts. And when you get that, all you need then is fruit. Why? Because that's healthy fats and protein in the yogurt. Then all you need, your third macronutrient that your body runs off, carbohydrates. And fruits are a sure winner. You can get right now in season apples. And apples are actually another prebiotic food. This has turned into an absolute unbelievable mismatch. Apples and pears. But I'll tell you a good one. If you want to be 1% healthier in your diet and your food choices today, choose a pear over an apple. I'll tell you why. Because for all that little bit of a grit that you taste when you take a bite out of a pear, that's a higher type of fiber than when you consume an apple. So for an extra gram, there's typically 4 grams or so in an apple, medium-sized apple, as opposed to your 5 grams in a pear. And your daily recommended amount of fiber is 30 grams. And how the hell do you get that? You eat beans, you eat nuts, you eat seeds, you eat fruits, you eat vegetables, and you will get there. Mushrooms, whatever the item is, because they're actually not a fruit or a vegetable. I just had to add that in. Meat doesn't have it. I'm not anti-meat. I'm more about high quality foods. And if I'm going to touch on this point, if there ever was a choice, if someone put a gun to my head and would say, Colman, would you rather eat organic vegetables or non-organic vegetables or non-organic meats? The answer would be, if you put a gun to my head, don't do it. Don't ask me. I don't know why my laptop is making that sound. But if I was to answer it honestly and truthfully, it would be, I would much prefer to have non-organic meats, just due to the fact that there's a natural detoxification that happens and occurs in an animal and in humans due to the liver. But vegetables don't have that. Vegetables are more heavily sprayed typically in their growing cycle, and that is the reason I would choose non-organic meats as opposed, especially if they're grass-fed. There we go again, trying to get better. There's no such thing as perfect. It's better. Improve your diet so that you can have optimal energy levels, improve gut health, and then on top of that. But obviously the gold standard is organic foods. I cannot recommend it enough to you. So that, I suppose, is wrapping up that first question. Great question. Prebiotics, probiotics, add them to your diet. Still feeling hungry after a high fiber meal. And this is so common. Firstly, I'm going to touch on most people who are feeling constantly hungry are looking for weight loss. And as a result of that, they're doing it incorrectly. Most people are under eating foods. And if you are eating meals, which have beans, which have vegetables, that have onions, garlics, leeks, spinach, rainbow chard, all these things in season, and you have tofu or tempeh, or you're having a meat protein source or eggs, the thing is, you most certainly have to remember that you need more than fiber to fill you up. And it's also, and proteins are typically found in tofu and tempeh and eggs. What you need is healthy fats. Healthy fats slow down the absorption of foods, and as a result of that, you can feel satiated much sooner. So always remember, your main meals of the day, whether it be breakfast or lunch or dinner, you need to remember that you need healthy fats in your diet. Healthy fats, yes, do have higher calories. So I'm going to touch out the three basic things. Proteins contain 4 kilocalories per gram. Carbohydrates contain 4 kilocalories per gram, and healthy fats contain 9 kilocalories. That's over double. But just remember that when you're making food choices, that you need those in certain amounts, dependent on your overall current height, weight, and activity level. But remember the benefits of healthy fats. They improve your cognitive function. Why? Because they contain, your brain contains up to 70% fats. So you'll be thinking clear. If you have to study, if you have to concentrate, whether it be a physical job you're doing or a job you're sitting at a laptop on a regular basis, that is worth noting that you consume healthy fats in your diet. What healthy fats also do is they also improve your skin complexion. Why? Because they increase the absorption of fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. You need these healthy fats. Your body can actually run off proteins and healthy fats. There's no essential carbohydrate. There are essential proteins, and I always recommend complete proteins that contain all 9 essential amino acids. There are 21 essential amino acids in existence right now, and there are essential omega-3 healthy fats such as There are essential healthy fats such as omega-3 and omega-6, and some advertisers will go omega-9 on their products, but that's not actually an essential healthy fat, and that is something worth noting. You need healthy fats, you need proteins, and those healthy fats that I do recommend would most certainly be, I'm going to give you examples now, chia seeds, flax seeds in your breakfast, in, I suppose, baked good items such as flaxseed bread is another one that I have recipes for on my YouTube channel that I do recommend people to check out. Why? Because it's 100% free and you gain the advantage of those omega-3 and the fiber, and there's protein found in that too. Chia seeds is another one that you can mix up in warm drinks or add even to soups to thicken it, and it's actually the swelling of that gel that is the healthy fats that are needed for you to maximize the absorption of the nutrients found in those both chia seeds and flax seeds. So that's another way of adding in those healthy fats to your diet. And for the most part, if you are hungry in and directly after that meal, it's a sure indication that I want to know what you were having for breakfast and what you have for lunch. I mentioned that I said most people undereat food. Yes, most people undereat their breakfast, they undereat their lunch, and they're typically binge eating at the end of the day. If you are and do come into that issue, you need to have a better understanding of foods, work with a nutritionist, work with a coach, and remember that your overall calories are the foods that you need to maintain your current weight, are determined from either using a calculator and or using an app like MyFitnessPal. I use this for people. I don't want people to track foods forever, unless you want to do bodybuilding competition, which I have never trained anybody for just yet, just myself. And it's difficult, and I don't recommend it, and it's quite restricting. But what it does is it gives you a better understanding of foods. You then know that, oh my God, 3 eggs is 21 grams of protein. Oh my goodness, I never knew that. 40 grams of oats is how much? Oh, yeah, well, that's 25 grams of protein, typically about half the carbohydrates. And those are just two that I know off the top of my head. 15 grams of hemp seeds is 5 grams of protein. And I'm always trying to remember on the protein sources. Why? Because most people are under eating protein. Protein keeps you fuller for longer. It doesn't have a major effect on your blood sugar levels. Those are main key reasons why people that are healthy, quote unquote healthy, mention the likes of protein. And it has that thermogenic effect, which means it burns calories as it's being digested. Yes, protein is beautiful and added to your diet. Add vegetables, plant-based sources of protein first. Why? Because they have fiber. Fiber keeps you fuller for longer. Oh yes, oh yeah. Then what else do we need? Some healthy fats. You've just recommended some healthy fats. Yes, get on the healthy fats and the protein sources and eat your damn greens. Add greens whatever you possibly can. Why? For vitamin C and the organic ones for sure. You know you should be eating the green ones. The green ones, the green tick. Yes, check it out. So that was a great question as well. And next one is coming in from Paul. Would salmon be okay protein source for dinner? Okay, this is a great question. And the fact is that salmon isn't the first fish I would recommend. I actually did a separate episode with James Barry. And to tell you what exact episode is, and other podcast hosts will literally go, oh, it's episode 147. How the hell did I remember what episode it was? It was an episode with James Barry. It was called Sustainable Fish. I don't know what number it is, but most certainly I can put it in the show notes. If you check down below here on YouTube, and or if you're still struggling, you can't find it in the show notes, send me a message and I'll pop it up to you directly. It's there. It's on both YouTube and it's on the other one, Stitcher and Spotify. All the S's, SNS. So salmon isn't the first thing. Firstly, for the fact that it can more often than not be farmed. Farm fish don't have the best bang for your buck and with nutritional value because they're enclosed in a closed area, and as a result of that, they may be low in certain types of vitamins and minerals as opposed to wild swimming fish. If and when I do get fish, I typically try get it from a fishmonger, and other fish that I would recommend that would be quite similar to salmon. They're oily fish. They have that essential omega-3 in it, and omega-6 are wild-caught mackerel. You can catch mackerel yourself. I'm going to tell you from talking to James Barry previously and talking to fishmongers that I meet at country markets on a regular basis, is the fact that the fish population is decreasing. Yes, and that is due to pollution and to overfishing. And this comes, I suppose, off the bat of we're actually over-consuming foods and we're wasting then a high percent of the foods that we buy. So I did like a scholarship previous to starting this podcast in 2016 for food waste, both in food production and I suppose foods that can be caught and then sold in supermarkets. But worth noting is the foods that you do eat, that make sure that you're eating as much of it as you possibly can, not wasting it. Nothing worse than buying high quality foods and then wasting firstly organic foods and then local wild caught, either, as I said, mackerel would be another option over salmon, because salmon typically, as an indication of their skin, if caught wild, is an advantage to have you noted that their foods do contain, that their feed contains a high percentage of coloring. But in the wild, that coloring that changes the pigment of their skin is natural, or in farmed, it's not so much. That's the dye. And that typically happens in animals such as chickens as well. It's dye put into their feed as opposed to them being free roaming. So know where your food comes from. As a result of that, if you are getting salmon, I'm certain that the individual, Paul, who has asked this question, is getting salmon that is farmed, because nearly 99% of the salmon that we're currently getting right now, even if it says Scottish salmon, it's the fact that there's a farm in Scotland. And that would be what I'd recommend to anybody. And then if you are getting the likes of mackerel or any other fish, maybe cod is another great fish that I do have on occasions, and it's high quality protein source that contains all 9 essential amino acids. I don't want you to get it wrapped in plastic. Why? Because the plastic firstly is causing pollutants and it's not recycled properly. And then following that, plastic is an endocrine disruptor, which means it can affect your body because it mimics chemicals, mimicking chemicals such as ones that have effect on your reproductive system. So for people who are looking to, I suppose, reprocreate, is that the word to use? To have a baby. inevitably that can all cause issues later on in life. So it's about, I suppose, have an understanding that what food is contained in. Getting things without plastic is what I do recommend. You can go to fishmongers and bring your own container. I know people say, oh my God, Colman, that's a bit of a pain. Yes, being healthy isn't easy, but the fact is being unhealthy is even more difficult, and you have to choose your suffering. That's really important. And I suppose on a point that getting the foods that are most beneficial to you in the best way you can possible for, I suppose, your overall and long-term health. Because whether a lot of people that listen to this episode, whether it be male or female, for weight loss or for building muscle, it's about doing your best to be your best. And that brings us on, absolutely brilliant, to the final question from Sandra Roach here. What do I do on a day where I feel SH1T and struggle to stay motivated? Okay, so this is, suppose you can take it in two separate ways. The first of which is on days that I don't feel, I suppose, my best, I would still train. I would remember that the fact is not every day you have to feel, and you will feel 100%. But inevitably, if you have training lined up, or if you are doing health practices such as grounding or sun gazing, which I also recommend, or sea swims, whatever the practice is, whatever the activity is, it's important to go ahead and do it. Whether it's raining, whether it's windy, we're coming into winter, and you say, oh God, I don't want to do it today. I have to go out and get my 10,000 steps. As Colman recommended it to me, and this is just not what I want right now. And you're nearly going to throw yourself on the couch, or you decide to go, I don't think I'll bother. Remember, you cannot gain the advantage of something you do not do. You need to remember that the things that are lined out by either yourself, your coach, or people that are pointing you in the right direction that you need to do. You need to remember that training, walking, any type of movement at all is going to increase blood flow. Increased blood flow is going to increase the amino acid getting to your brain, which is tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin. So the more you move, inevitably, the more happy endorphins you will produce. These are just the small little things to remember the days that it's difficult. And then touching on the second half of that, it's the idea that motivation comes from within. Not every day you're motivated, not even Mr. Motivator here, some people are calling me in DMs. The thing about it is, you have to realize on the days you're struggling. I have goals boards. I have actually moved this orientation of the room around. The goal boards are actually in front of me right now that I can see them. I know what I want to do. I know the current feeling I would like to have on a regular basis. I would know the way I want to look. And as a result of that, there are things that I have to do. There are a certain amount of sessions that I have to do in a week. I have to do a certain amount of cardio. I have to do a certain amount of weight sessions. I have to do a certain amount of grounding. I have to do a certain amount of sea swims. This is in my personal training. And whenever I do feel like the day where it's cold, where it's wet, where it's windy, where I'm fed up, where things went wrong, where people didn't do what I told them, and as a result of that, or something in either a personal or a family relationship are just not going well for me, I have to look at those and remember the fact that those are the things that bring me closer to the way I would like to feel. Those are the things I'm staring at, I'm looking at right now. Those are the things that really do help on the days that you're lacking motivation. And as a result of that, it just gets you clear. That's why I always recommend to people to write things down. When you write things down, it comes from up top and comes back down on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard for that matter. And people that I train and mentor and coach, I most certainly recommend them to get a whiteboard and get yourself a couple of colors, black, blue, red, underline things, put them in bold, get clear on what you want and start working towards it. I'm a positive man because I do things to benefit my overall health. Okay, I'm not just the personal trainer who recommends you to do 4 days of training a week. I'm not the nutritionist who just tells you to eat a certain type of food. I'm not just that fella who hands you the veg and doesn't even know what nutritional value or benefit it is to you. I put all those things and wrap it up in a package and point people and push them in the direction that they would like to go for overall health, for people to live happier and healthier lives, eating local, fresh and organic produce, doing more things that benefit them on a regular basis, such as starting the moment you get up, the food you have for breakfast, whether it's the most important meal of the day or not, it's definitely one of the top 3. It's getting up and going and fitting in, whether your workout is to be done in the morning, getting out there and doing your job, whenever your job starts and whenever your job finishes. Directly after that, then focusing on something that could be your next meal. After that, then doing a little bit of stretching, maybe a little bit of journaling, all these things. And most certainly throughout the day, you have to be positive, because whatever you're focusing on will expand. If you're constantly listening to the news on a regular basis, that's not going to help you. If you're constantly listening and hanging around with people who are nothing but doom and gloom, and as a result of that, they will drag you back down to, suppose, where they are. I want people to do more things that benefit them. Do the simple things. Most people know what to do, but as a result of that, they're just not doing it. It's heartbreak. You know the training, you know the foods, you know what's best for you. But the thing is, you have to do it. I suppose that's a good way as any to wrap up, an episode on a Thursday. And I suppose we'll recap over a couple of the questions just for it to stick in people's minds. Foods I recommend for not only weight loss and whatever your fitness goal may be is prebiotic and probiotic foods. So those are your onions, garlic, leeks, Jerusalem artichokes. They're in season. They're so easy to grow. You're not growing them, go to a country market and they'll sort you out 100%. Then the next thing is probiotic foods. Those are fermented. Those are kimchi, kombucha. We have fermented drinks, miso. You have yogurt that I do recommend as well. And if you are looking for, I suppose, to get your best bang for your buck, coconut yogurts aren't high protein, but they are high healthy fats. So just remember that when you're choosing your yogurts, worth noting. If you don't tolerate dairy, also soy yogurts. So there we go. Just not expanded on that point. Still feeling hungry after high veg fibered meal, most certainly is adding protein sources and healthy fats to that meal. We touched on those omega-3 filled healthy fats, and then we went on to omega-filled fish such as salmon that I don't typically recommend due to it being most commonly farmed. And then the final thing is switch it up for mackerel or any other fish source for a protein fish that has both omega-3 and omega-6 healthy fats too. So the final one is, what do you do in the days you're struggling? Make sure you're clear on where you are right now and where you would like to go. Write things down on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard. If you don't have a whiteboard, I recommend get it. Go old school, go blackboard. Whatever it is, write it down. And just like to end these episodes by saying thanks very much for watching or listening to this week's episode. And as a result of that, if you would do me a massive favor and leave me a review, 5 stars preferably. And if you do have any suggestions for improvements for the show or podcast or questions you want to shout out or co-sign out, you with your name or a specific question to your fitness, you want to leave it anonymous, hit me up and I most certainly will add it to the list of Q&As that I do on a regular basis. All right, stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic.